The transport shuttle Morning Star was supposed to be routine. 23 passengers, mostly students and researchers, traveling from Luna Base to the agricultural colony on Kepler 442b. Sarah Chen, a xenobiology student, was looking forward to studying the planet's unique plant life. Emma Rodriguez was excited about her new job at the hydroponics facility. Maya Patel had been selected for the advanced terraforming program. None of them made it to their destination. Captain Torres of the UES Meridian was the first to notice something was wrong. The Morning Star had missed its scheduled check-in by 6 hours. In space, 6 hours might as well be 6 years. Ships didn't just go silent unless something terrible had happened. "Sir, we're detecting debris," called out Lieutenant Park from the sensor station, approximately 2 light hours from the Morning Star's last known position. Captain Torres felt his stomach drop. "Life signs?" "Negative, sir, but—" Park frowned at her readings. "The debris pattern is wrong. This wasn't an accident or a technical failure. The ship was attacked." The wreckage told a story that made seasoned space officers sick. Precision cuts through the hull. No signs of an explosion or system failure. The ship had been carefully dissected, like a surgeon opening a patient. Most disturbing of all, the escape pods were gone, but the pod bays showed no signs of emergency launch. Someone had taken them. Admiral Sarah Kim received the report at Fleet Command on Earth. She had seen enough combat to know what controlled destruction looked like. This was a predator taking prey. But the predator had made one crucial mistake. They had taken humans. "How many?" she asked her aide, Commander Jackson. 17 women between the ages of 19 and 28. 6 men, but they're... Jackson swallowed hard. "The men were left behind, sir. In pieces." Admiral Kim's face showed no emotion, but her knuckles went white as she gripped her coffee cup. In her 40 years of military service, she had never encountered anything so coldly calculated. This wasn't war. This was hunting. Any idea who did this? "We're analyzing the weapon signatures now." "But Admiral, there's something else. This is the 3rd incident in 2 months. Same pattern. Same type of victims. The pieces fell into place like dominoes. 3 attacks. 3 ships. 62 human women taken. Every man left dead. Someone was collecting human females like livestock." Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting the story. The images were sanitized for public consumption, but the message was clear. Someone was hunting humanity's daughters. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the Secretary of Xenological Affairs, tried to maintain diplomatic calm during her press conference. "We are investigating these incidents and will respond appropriately through proper channels." But the people weren't interested in diplomatic responses. Social media exploded with anger. Military recruitment centers saw lines around the block. The phrase "proper channels" became a bitter joke shared by millions. The real response was happening in rooms far from the cameras. Admiral Kim convened an emergency session of the Defense Council. Fleet Admiral Chen, General Morrison of the Space Marines, and Director Hayes of Military Intelligence sat around a table that had seen many wars, but never one like this. "Intelligence assessment?" Kim asked. Director Hayes pulled up holographic displays. "Weapon signatures match no known human technology. The precision suggests advanced energy weapons, possibly plasma-based. More concerning, they knew exactly which ships to target. These weren't random attacks. They're watching us," Fleet Admiral Chen said quietly. "Studying us. Learning our routes, our schedules." General Morrison, a man who had fought in 3 border conflicts, looked grim. "It's a procurement operation. Military precision, specific targets, careful extraction. Someone wants human women and they're willing to kill for them. The question is why," Admiral Kim said. "And who?" The answer came 2 days later from an unexpected source. Dr. Marcus Webb, a theoretical physicist studying quantum communication, detected something impossible. Transmissions. Not between ships or planets, but between dimensions. "They're not from our universe," he explained to the assembled military leaders. "The quantum signatures are wrong. They're using technology that literally exists in a parallel dimensional space." Admiral Kim processed this information with the same calm she brought to every crisis. Interdimensional aliens were abducting human women. The how was becoming clear. The why remained a mystery. "Can we track these transmissions?" "I think so. Give me a week and unlimited resources. You have both." While Dr. Webb worked on tracking the aliens, Fleet Command began preparing for the possibility that diplomacy might not be an option. Every human colony received emergency defense upgrades. Patrol schedules were randomized. Women's transport was restricted to heavily armed convoys, but the aliens were patient. They watched and waited. The fourth attack came 3 weeks later. This time they hit the passenger liner New Horizon, carrying 400 civilians from Mars to Europa. The ship was escorted by 2 destroyer-class vessels. It didn't matter. The escorts were destroyed with contemptuous ease. The liner was carved open like a tin can. 43 women vanished into space, leaving behind 357 corpses and 1 broken transmission. "They were magnificent," whispered Ensign Park, the sole survivor found floating in a damaged escape pod. "Beautiful and terrible. They moved like dancers. The weapons sang as they fired." Ensign Park died from her injuries 2 hours later, but not before delivering one more piece of information that changed everything. "They spoke to us, in perfect English. They said they were collecting specimens. They said human females were perfect for breeding." The word breeding spread through human space like wildfire. Not refugees, not prisoners. Breeding stock. Admiral Kim stood at the observation deck of Luna Base, looking out at Earth. Somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, her people, her daughters, were being held by creatures that saw them as animals to be bred. She thought about her own daughter, Sarah, serving aboard a research vessel near Titan. She thought about the 62 women already taken. She thought about every mother and father and sister and brother who would go to sleep tonight wondering if their loved ones were still alive. "Admiral," Commander Jackson approached cautiously. "Dr. Webb says he has something." Kim turned away from Earth. The time for watching and waiting was over. Humanity had been patient long enough. Dr. Marcus Webb's laboratory had become the most important room in human space. Banks of quantum computers hummed day and night, processing dimensional signatures that shouldn't exist. Webb himself hadn't slept in 3 days, surviving on stimulants and raw determination. "Got you," he whispered, as the final calculations resolved on his screen. The interdimensional gateway was hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, completely invisible to normal sensors. It existed in a folded space that overlapped with their reality. The aliens had been using it as a highway, moving between dimensions to hunt in human space. Admiral Kim arrived within 6 hours, bringing with her the most classified science team in the fleet. Dr. Elena Vasquez, humanity's leading expert on alien technology. Dr. James Liu, who had reverse-engineered Centauri defensive systems. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, whose theoretical work on dimensional physics had been considered impossible until today. "How long has it been there?" Kim asked, studying the gravitational anomaly that marked the gateway's location. "Minimum 6 months," Webb replied. "Possibly longer. They've been watching us, learning our patrol routes, our shipping schedules. This was never random." Dr. Vasquez pulled up the attack patterns on her tablet. "Look at the timing. Each attack happened when the victims' ships were at their most vulnerable. No military escorts nearby, no patrol vessels in range. They knew exactly when to strike. The implications were staggering. The aliens hadn't just stumbled across humanity. They had conducted months of surveillance, studying human society like scientists examining lab rats. They had learned human languages, human technology, human weaknesses, and then they had started hunting. "Can we go through it?" Admiral Kim asked. Dr. Webb exchanged glances with Dr. Tanaka. "Theoretically, yes, but we'd need to modify our ship's quantum signatures to match their dimensional frequency. It would take weeks. You have 3 days." While the scientists worked on dimensional travel, fleet intelligence was putting together a picture of their enemy that grew more disturbing by the hour. The attack patterns showed coordination across vast distances. The technology demonstrated capabilities far beyond current human understanding. Most concerning of all, the precision of their operations suggested experience. Humanity wasn't their first target. Director Hayes presented his findings to the emergency session of the World Council. Leaders from every major nation and colony sat in grim silence as he outlined what they faced. "Based on the technological evidence, we're dealing with a civilization that has perfected interdimensional warfare. They've developed specific techniques for infiltration, surveillance, and extraction. The surgical nature of their attacks suggests they've done this before." President Martinez of the American Federation leaned forward. "How many times before?" Unknown, but Director Chen's analysis of their ship design shows wear patterns consistent with extensive use. These aren't experimental vessels. This is their standard operating procedure. The revelation hit the Council like a physical blow. Somewhere across the dimensions, an entire civilization had turned the hunting and breeding of intelligent species into a science. Humanity had become their latest target. Prime Minister Okafor of the African Union was the first to speak. What do our daughters face in that place? Director Hayes hesitated. The psychological profiles his team had developed weren't meant for public consumption. But these leaders needed to understand what they were dealing with. Based on the selection criteria and the statements made to Ensign Park, we believe the abducted women are being held in breeding facilities. The aliens showed no interest in men, the elderly, or children, only women in their reproductive prime. The silence that followed was broken by Premier Wang of the Asian Consortium. Then we know what we must do. But it was Chancellor Mueller of Europa who spoke the words that would echo through history. We do not negotiate with kidnappers. We do not bargain with slavers. We find our daughters and we bring them home. The vote was unanimous. Fleet Admiral Chen began mobilizing the largest military force in human history. Every available warship was recalled from patrol duty. Colonial defense fleets were stripped to skeleton crews. Even the ancient Earth defense grid was activated for the first time in 50 years. But Admiral Kim knew that conventional weapons might not be enough. If the aliens could move between dimensions at will, they could simply retreat whenever faced with superior force. This war would require new tactics, new weapons, and new thinking. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Kim, Admiral Kim's daughter, was working with the research team analyzing the quantum signatures when she made a connection that had eluded everyone else. Mother, they're not just moving between dimensions. They're tethered to their home reality. Look at these energy readings. Admiral Kim studied the data her daughter had compiled. Explain it in simple terms. Think of it like a submarine. They can dive into our reality, but they need an umbilical cord back to their own dimension for life support. If we can sever that connection, they're trapped here with us. Exactly. And in our reality, our physics, they're not invincible. Dr. Webb confirmed Sarah's theory within hours. The aliens were using quantum tethers to maintain dimensional stability while operating in human space. Cut the tethers and they would be forced to fight by human rules. The plan that emerged was audacious in its simplicity. A strike force would use the modified quantum signatures to follow the aliens through their gateway. Once in their dimension, they would locate the breeding facilities and extract the human prisoners. Meanwhile, a second force would attack the gateway itself, severing the aliens' connection to human space and preventing retreat. It was a plan that could save their daughters or trap the rescue force in an alien dimension forever. General Morrison personally selected the Marines who would go through the gateway. Veterans of the Centauri border war, the Titan uprising, and a dozen smaller conflicts. Men and women who had volunteered to face the unknown for the chance to bring their people home. Captain Sophia Reyes would lead the rescue mission. She had fought in more boarding actions than any other officer in the fleet. If anyone could navigate the corridors of an alien breeding facility and extract prisoners under fire, it was her. Rules of engagement, she asked Admiral Kim during the final briefing. Kim's answer was simple and absolute. Bring our daughters home. Kill everything that tries to stop you. As the modified ships prepared for dimensional transit, news of the mission spread through human space. What had started as horror and grief was transforming into something the aliens had never encountered before. Human rage. On Earth, families of the abducted women held vigils outside military bases. On Mars, workers in the orbital shipyards labored around the clock to arm the rescue fleet. On Luna, children drew pictures of their missing sisters coming home. But in the deeper colonies where frontier families had learned that safety came from strength, the response was different. They weren't just praying for rescue. They were preparing for war. The aliens had made a simple mistake. They had assumed that humans were just another species to be harvested. They had studied human technology, human shipping routes, human weaknesses. They had failed to study human nature. Dr. Webb made the final calculations as the gateway opened for human ships. The dimensional barrier that had hidden the aliens for months parted like water, revealing a passage into the unknown. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching her ships disappear into interdimensional space. Some of them might not come back, but those that did would carry a message that would echo through dimensions. Humanity had arrived. The shipyards of Luna had never seen anything like it. What had taken months to build during peacetime was now being assembled in days. The emergency industrial protocols written during the Centauri War but never used had transformed human space into a massive weapons factory. Captain Sophia Reyes walked through the modified assault cruiser Vengeance, checking every detail of the dimensional modifications. The ship hummed with new energy. Quantum field stabilizing the hull for interdimensional travel. The Marine complement aboard had been doubled, and every soldier carried weapons designed for close-quarters combat in unknown environments. "Captain," called out Sergeant Torres, her senior NCO. "The new ammunition has arrived." The ammunition was another human innovation born from necessity. Dr. Liu's team had designed explosive rounds that would work regardless of alien atmospheric composition, chemical propellants that functioned in vacuum, high gravity, or low pressure. If they encountered aliens that breathed methane or existed in crushing gravity, human weapons would still kill them. But the real breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Kim's analysis of the quantum tethers had revealed something crucial about alien physiology. They required constant dimensional harmonics to maintain cellular cohesion. Disrupt those harmonics and their bodies would literally fall apart. Every human weapon now carried a secondary resonance field generator. Not only would bullets tear through alien flesh, they would unravel the quantum forces holding that flesh together. General Morrison supervised the final combat preparations. From the command center on Luna Base, the holographic display showed the positions of every ship in the rescue fleet: 12 assault cruisers, 6 heavy destroyers, and 2 battleships, the largest force humanity had ever sent into unknown space. "Final count?" he asked his aide. 8,000 Marines, 1,500 ship crew, and 200 technical specialists, plus the science team. The science team was smaller but arguably more important. Dr. Webb would coordinate the dimensional transit. Dr. Vasquez would analyze alien technology on the fly. Dr. Tanaka would monitor the quantum tethers that kept the rescue force connected to human reality. Admiral Kim had insisted on leading the mission personally. The decision had caused fierce debate in the War Council, but her reasoning was simple. If humanity was going to declare war on an interdimensional civilization, that declaration should come from the highest level. The aliens had studied human military doctrine, but they had missed something fundamental. Humans didn't just fight for territory or resources. They fought for each other. The rescue mission wasn't just about saving 62 women. It was about sending a message that would echo through dimensions. Humanity protected its own. As the fleet prepared for departure, intelligence reports continued to arrive from across human space. The aliens weren't passive. Reconnaissance probes had detected unusual quantum fluctuations near several major colonies. They were preparing for something. Director Hayes briefed Admiral Kim on the latest developments. "They know we've found their gateway. 3 more dimensional signatures have appeared in the outer system. They're bringing reinforcements. How many? Unknown. But the energy readings suggest ship-sized objects. Possibly a lot of them." Admiral Kim processed this information with her usual calm. The aliens were escalating. What had started as hunting raids was about to become open warfare. Fleet status: 80% of our ships are committed to the rescue mission. Earth defense grid is at maximum readiness. Colonial militias are mobilizing, but if they bring a full invasion force, we can't stop them all. No, sir, not with conventional tactics. Admiral Kim turned to the tactical display showing Earth's defensive positions. The planet that had given birth to humanity had never looked more vulnerable. But that vulnerability might be their greatest weapon. "They're predators," she said quietly. "They hunt isolated prey. They've never faced a species that fights back as one." The human response had been building momentum across every inhabited world. What had started as military mobilization was becoming something larger. Civilian defense corps were forming spontaneously. Industrial facilities were converting to weapons production without being asked. Even children were contributing, making supplies for troops or writing letters to the rescue forces. On Mars, the mining unions had retrofitted their industrial equipment into weapons platforms. Giant excavators designed to move asteroids were being equipped with military-grade sensors and weapons. If the aliens came to Mars, they would face construction equipment that could tear apart mountains. The colonies of the outer system were taking an even more direct approach. Generations of frontier life had taught them that survival meant being ready to fight for everything they had. They weren't waiting for the fleet to protect them. They were preparing to take the war to the enemy. Captain Rodriguez of the freighter Iron Horse spoke for thousands of civilian captains when he volunteered his ship for combat conversion. They want to hunt us like animals? Let's see how they handle a few thousand angry cargo haulers with nothing to lose. But the real surprise came from the corporate sector. The megacorporations that controlled most of human space industry had their own fleets, their own security forces, and their own reasons to hate the aliens. Kidnapping potential customers was bad for business. Yamamoto Dynamics announced they were converting their entire merchant fleet to assault vessels. Biotech Industries offered their advanced medical facilities for treating rescued prisoners. Even the normally neutral Swiss banking consortium pledged their transport ships for evacuation operations. The message was clear. The aliens hadn't just attacked human ships. They had attacked humanity itself. As the rescue fleet made final preparations, quantum sensors detected massive movement in the alien dimension. Dr. Webb's instruments showed energy signatures unlike anything they had previously recorded. They're mobilizing too, he reported to Admiral Kim. Whatever force they're assembling, it's enormous. How enormous? Based on the quantum displacement readings, thousands of ships. The scale of the alien response revealed the true nature of what humanity faced. This wasn't a small raiding force. It was an entire civilization built around the hunting and enslavement of other species. The kidnapping of human women had been just the beginning. But Admiral Kim had expected this. Intelligence had always suggested the aliens were experienced at this kind of warfare. They had perfected the art of destroying resistant species through overwhelming force. They had never encountered humans before. Dr. Sarah Kim completed her final calculations on the quantum disruptor technology. If her theories were correct, human weapons wouldn't just kill individual aliens. They could destabilize the dimensional fields that held their entire fleet together. It's theoretical, she warned her mother. We've never tested it on this scale. Will it work? It should. But if I'm wrong, the backlash could destroy our own ships. Admiral Kim looked at the tactical display showing the rescue fleet. 8,000 Marines and 1,500 crew members, all volunteers who knew they might not come home. Behind them, billions of humans watching and waiting. Acceptable risk, she decided. The final element of the plan was the most audacious. While the rescue fleet extracted the prisoners, a second force would attack the gateway itself. Not to close it, but to capture it. Human engineers would take control of the alien dimensional technology and turn it against its creators. The engineering teams were led by Commander Sarah Chen, a specialist in hostile takeovers of enemy installations. Her forces carried molecular disassemblers, quantum computers, and enough firepower to level a city. Their mission was simple: steal an interdimensional gateway from its creators. Remember, Admiral Kim addressed the combined fleet commanders in the final briefing. We're not just rescuing our people, we're sending a message. When someone takes our daughters, we don't negotiate. We don't pay ransom. We come for them, and we destroy anyone who gets in our way. The cheers that echoed through the communication channels could be heard across human space. For the first time since the kidnappings began, humanity was no longer the prey. As the dimensional gateway opened and the rescue fleet began its transit, every human in the solar system stopped what they were doing to watch. Children pressed their faces against viewport windows. Adults gathered around news screens. Even the most hardened soldiers found themselves holding their breath. Humanity was going to war across dimensions. The last transmission from the rescue fleet was simple and direct. See you on the other side. Then they were gone, disappearing into a realm where the laws of physics bent to alien will and human women waited in breeding cages for rescue or death. The countdown to full-scale war had begun. Followed predictable laws of physics, this place bent reality to alien will. Gravity shifted without warning. Light behaved like liquid. Space itself seemed to pulse with malevolent intelligence. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Retribution as her fleet emerged from the dimensional transit. The quantum field generators hummed with effort, maintaining the bubble of human physics that kept her ships functional in this twisted realm. "Report," she ordered. Lieutenant Park's voice was tight with amazement. "Sensors are confused, Admiral. We're detecting structures that shouldn't be possible. Cities floating in space without atmosphere. Energy sources that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." Through the main viewport, Kim could see what had shocked her crew into silence. The alien civilization wasn't just advanced, it was vast beyond comprehension. Megastructures stretched across impossible distances, connected by streams of living energy. Ships the size of moons drifted between installations that defied every law of engineering. But it was the breeding facilities that made her blood run cold. Massive spherical structures, each one large enough to hold a human city, floated in perfect formation around a central command complex. Scanners detected energy signatures consistent with life support systems scaled for millions of inhabitants. "How many?" Kim asked quietly. Dr. Vasquez checked her readings twice before answering. Based on the size and power consumption, each facility could hold approximately 50,000 individuals. The math was devastating. The aliens weren't just holding 62 human women. They were operating industrial-scale breeding operations with capacity for millions. Humanity had stumbled onto something far worse than simple kidnapping. "Ma'am," called out Communications Officer Martinez, "we're receiving a transmission. Multiple sources." The main screen flickered, then cleared to show an alien face that would haunt human nightmares for generations. Beautiful in an inhuman way, with features that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. When it spoke, the voice carried harmonics that made human teeth ache. "Welcome, primitive ones. We are the harvesters. Your females have proven adequate for our purposes. You may retreat and we will consider sparing your home dimension." Admiral Kim stepped forward, her face showing no emotion despite the rage building in her chest. "This is Admiral Sarah Kim of the United Earth Fleet. You are holding human citizens against their will. Release them immediately or face the consequences." The alien's expression shifted into something that might have been amusement. "Consequences? You are in our realm now, bound by our laws. Your crude technology cannot threaten us here." To demonstrate their point, one of the alien ships, a sleek vessel that seemed to phase in and out of visibility, fired a warning shot across the Retribution's bow. The energy beam passed harmlessly through the human ship's shields, but left reality scarred in its wake. "Your weapons are useless against us," the alien continued. "We exist partially outside your physics, but we are curious about your species. Perhaps we will take more of your females for study." That was when Admiral Kim smiled. "You studied our shipping routes, our technology, our weaknesses." Her voice carried across every ship in the fleet. "But you never studied what makes us human." She turned to her weapons officer. "Fire." The human response was immediate and devastating. Every ship in the rescue fleet opened fire simultaneously. But these weren't the conventional weapons the aliens expected. Dr. Sarah Kim's quantum disruptors tore through the alien ships, dimensional shields like paper. The alien vessel that had fired the warning shot simply came apart. Its reality-phasing technology, so effective against normal weapons, couldn't handle the quantum resonance fields. The ship's molecular structure unraveled, leaving only expanding clouds of exotic matter. The alien commander's expression shifted from amusement to shock, to something approaching fear. "Impossible. Your weapons cannot affect The transmission cut off as human missiles found their target. The alien command ship, protected by shields that bent space-time itself, died under the impact of weapons that ignored the laws of physics entirely. "All ships," Admiral Kim broadcast to her fleet, "remember why we're here. Find our people." Captain Reyes led the assault on the nearest breeding facility. Her Marines, trained for boarding actions in human space, adapted quickly to the alien environment. Gravity might shift without warning, but training and determination remained constant. The facility's defenses were impressive by any standard. Energy weapons that fired beams of crystallized time, barriers made of solidified space, guardian creatures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. None of it mattered. Sergeant Torres kicked down a door that shouldn't have existed and found himself face to face with an alien guard. The creature was tall, graceful, and completely unprepared for a human with a grudge and military-grade explosives. For the girls, Torres growled and pulled the trigger. The quantum disruptor round didn't just kill the alien. It erased him from local reality, leaving behind a hole in space that slowly sealed itself. The Marines advanced through corridors that defied geometry, following scanner readings that led to the holding cells. What they found there would fuel human rage for centuries. Rows upon rows of transparent containment units, each holding a human woman in suspended animation. Monitoring equipment tracked vital signs, reproductive cycles, genetic compatibility. Medical apparatus designed for procedures that no human should ever endure. Jesus Christ, whispered Private Chen, looking at the industrial scale of the operation. How many are there? Captain Reyes was already counting. Too many. Torres, get the tech team up here. We need to wake them up safely. But the aliens weren't giving up their prize without a fight. Guardian creatures poured through the walls, literally through them, emerging from solid matter like ghosts. They moved with inhuman grace, their weapons singing death songs that froze human blood. The Marines responded with human efficiency. Cover fire, coordinated movement, and enough explosive ordnance to level a city block. The alien guardians were dangerous, but they had never faced soldiers who treated impossible odds as just another day at the office. Meanwhile, the space battle raged across multiple dimensions. Admiral Kim's fleet, outnumbered 50-1, was systematically destroying alien vessels through sheer technological superiority. Every human ship carried quantum disruptors now, and the aliens' dimensional advantages meant nothing against weapons that attacked the fabric of reality itself. But it was the alien response that revealed the true nature of what humanity faced. As their ships died around them, the aliens didn't retreat or surrender. They became more aggressive, more desperate. This wasn't just a raiding force, it was their entire way of life. Admiral, Dr. Webb called from his science station, I'm detecting massive quantum disturbances throughout their dimension. They're activating some kind of doomsday weapon. Kim studied the readings. Whatever the aliens were doing, it involved manipulating the fundamental forces that held their dimension together. If they succeeded, they could collapse entire sections of reality, taking the human fleet with them. Time to completion? Approximately 30 minutes. Kim opened fleet-wide communications. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. The aliens are attempting to destroy their own dimension rather than let us rescue our people. We have 30 minutes to find every human prisoner and get out. The response was immediate. Every human ship began moving toward the breeding facilities, ignoring the alien fleet entirely. This wasn't about winning a space battle anymore. It was about saving lives before the aliens destroyed everything out of spite. Captain Reyes received the message as her Marines were awakening the first group of human prisoners. Sarah Chen, the xenobiology student, opened her eyes to see a figure in combat armor standing over her containment unit. Ma'am, this is Captain Sophia Reyes, United Earth Marines. We're here to take you home. Sarah tried to speak, but months of suspended animation had left her throat raw. Reyes helped her sit up, supporting her weight as circulation returned to her limbs. How did you find us? We followed the bastards who took you. Can you walk? Sarah tested her legs, wobbling but determined. Around her, other women were awakening to the same impossible sight. Human soldiers in an alien hell, risking everything to bring them home. But the rescue was just beginning. Scanners showed thousands more containment units throughout the facility. Some held human women. Others contained beings from species the Marines didn't recognize. Confirmation that humanity wasn't the aliens' first victim. We're taking them all, Reyes decided. Every prisoner, every species. No one gets left behind. The next 25 minutes became a legend in human military history. Against impossible odds, in an environment that defied logic, human Marines extracted every prisoner they could find. They fought through guardians that existed in multiple realities. They navigated corridors that led to places that shouldn't exist. They carried unconscious prisoners through battles that violated the laws of physics, and they succeeded. As the final transport lifted off from the breeding facility, carrying precious human cargo toward the fleet, the alien dimension began to collapse around them. Reality folded in on itself, space becoming time, becoming energy, becoming nothingness. The human fleet, loaded with rescued pirae, escaping hell itself. Behind them, an entire universe died in cascading waves of quantum destruction as the aliens chose extinction over defeat. But humanity had saved everyone they could reach. 847 human women and over 3,000 beings from dozens of other species. Admiral Kim stood in the medical bay of the Retribution, watching human doctors work frantically to save lives. Sarah Chen, the xenobiology student who had been among the first taken, was awake and talking despite her ordeal. Her first words after proper medical treatment were a warning. "Admiral, they're not the only ones. The Harvesters." They spoke of others. "An entire alliance of species that hunt and breed across dimensions. Earth isn't safe." The rescued alien prisoners confirmed humanity's worst fears. The Harvesters were just one member of something called the Consortium, a collection of predator species that had divided the multiverse into hunting territories. They had been operating for millennia, wiping out entire civilizations that tried to resist. Dr. Vasquez interviewed a creature that looked like living crystal and spoke through harmonic resonance. Its species had fallen to the Consortium 3,000 years ago. The survivors had been bred in facilities until their genetic diversity collapsed. "Your species shows promise," it communicated through the translation device. "But the Consortium will bring all their forces against you now. They cannot allow resistance to spread." As if summoned by those words, alarms began blaring throughout the fleet. Long-range sensors detected massive quantum disturbances throughout human space. Not just one gateway this time, dozens of them, opening simultaneously around every major human colony. The invasion had begun. Admiral Kim rushed to the command center, where Director Hayes was coordinating intelligence from across human space. The tactical display showed red symbols appearing around Earth, Mars, Luna, and every colony world in human territory. "Fleet status?" Kim demanded. 80% still committed to the rescue mission, General Morrison reported. "Colony defense forces are mobilizing, but we're spread too thin. Enemy strength?" Hayes pulled up the sensor readings. Initial estimates suggest over 10,000 ships. Multiple species, multiple technologies. The entire consortium is committing to this attack. The scale of the invasion force was overwhelming. Humanity had perhaps 2,000 ships capable of military action, scattered across hundreds of light years. The aliens were bringing 5 times that number, all concentrated for a coordinated strike. Any other species would have considered surrender. Instead, Admiral Kim opened communications to every human facility in known space. Her message was broadcast to military bases, civilian colonies, corporate headquarters, and individual ships across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Kim. The alien consortium has declared war on humanity. They believe they can break us through overwhelming force. They're about to learn why that's a mistake." The response was immediate and decisive. On Earth, the ancient planetary defense grid powered up for the first time in 50 years. On Mars, mining equipment was hastily converted to weapons platforms. On Luna, every civilian with military training reported for duty. But it was in the outer colonies where humanity's true strength became apparent. Generations of frontier life had produced communities that knew how to fight for survival. They weren't waiting for the fleet to protect them. They were preparing to protect themselves. Captain Rodriguez of the Iron Horse spoke for thousands of civilian captains when he announced, "We're not running. We're not hiding. Any alien ship that comes within weapons range is going to get a very human welcome." The corporate response was equally swift. Yamamoto Dynamics unveiled prototype warships that had been secretly developed for years. Biotech Industries activated their private security fleet. Even the Swiss banking consortium revealed military assets that surprised intelligence agencies. But the real surprise came from the rescued alien prisoners. Representatives from dozens of species stepped forward, offering to fight alongside humanity. "The consortium destroyed our worlds," spoke the crystal being through its translator. "If humanity can resist them, perhaps others can be free as well." Within hours, the rescue fleet had become the core of an unlikely alliance. Human ships fought alongside crystal warriors, silicon-based entities, and beings of pure energy who had been thought extinct for centuries. It was the first multi-species resistance the consortium had ever faced. The opening battle came at Titan, where a consortium force of 300 ships encountered the mining platform Prometheus. The aliens expected easy victory against a civilian installation. Instead, they found themselves facing industrial equipment the size of skyscrapers, operated by engineers who had spent their lives moving asteroids. When the aliens attacked, the miners responded with fusion-powered excavators that could carve through moon-sized rocks. The alien fleet commander's final transmission was simple. What are these creatures? The question echoed across consortium communications as reports flooded in from attack points throughout human space. Nothing was going according to plan. The humans weren't running or surrendering. They were fighting back with weapons that shouldn't exist and tactics that made no sense. On Europa, fishing vessels had been converted to attack ships that moved like schools of predatory fish, swarming alien vessels with coordinated precision. On Ceres, asteroid miners used their industrial charges to create space mines that turned entire star systems into death traps. But it was the Battle of Luna that became the stuff of legend. Admiral Chen, commanding the Home Defense Fleet, faced a consortium force of over 1,000 ships. His own fleet numbered less than 50 vessels, most of them converted civilian craft. By every tactical measure, the battle should have been over in minutes. Instead, it lasted 6 hours and ended with complete human victory. The key was humanity's quantum disruptor technology, now mass-produced and installed on every human vessel. But more than that, it was human tactical doctrine adapted for interdimensional warfare. The aliens fought like predators, individual ships seeking individual kills. Humans fought like pack hunters, coordinating their attacks with precision that bordered on telepathy. When alien ships tried to phase out of normal space to avoid damage, human weapons followed them into alternate dimensions. Captain Sarah Kim, commanding the destroyer Defiant, led a squadron of converted freighters against a consortium battle group. Her tactics violated every rule of space combat, charging directly at superior forces, using civilian ships as sacrificial shields, coordinating attacks through methods that required split-second timing. It worked perfectly. The trick, she explained to her crew as alien ships died around them, is that they think in terms of hunting prey. We think in terms of protecting family. The psychological difference was crucial. The consortium species fought for territory, resources, and dominance. Humans fought for each other. When a human ship was damaged, other vessels would sacrifice themselves to protect it. When civilians were threatened, military units would abandon tactical advantage to save lives. It was inefficient by any strategic measure. It was also utterly devastating to enemies who had never faced opponents willing to die for strangers. The Battle of Mars showcased human innovation at its finest. Dr. Webb, still aboard the rescue fleet, had developed portable quantum disruptors that could be carried by individual soldiers. When consortium ground forces landed outside New Shanghai, they found themselves facing Marines who could literally erase reality around them. The alien troops were individually superior, stronger, faster, equipped with personal force fields and energy weapons. But they had never fought soldiers who treated physics as a suggestion rather than a law. Sergeant Torres, now equipped with a quantum disruptor rifle, single-handedly held off an alien assault team by creating localized reality distortions. When the aliens tried to retreat, he followed them through their own dimensional portals, carrying the fight to staging areas they thought were completely secure. The reports reaching Consortium Command made no sense. Human soldiers were fighting in dimensions that should kill them instantly. Human ships were surviving attacks that should vaporize matter itself. Human civilians were building weapons out of farming equipment and mining tools. Most disturbing of all, the humans were winning. Not just individual battles, but the entire strategic picture. Every consortium force that engaged human defenders suffered catastrophic losses. What should have been a simple extermination campaign was becoming a disaster that threatened the entire consortium power structure. The High Council of the consortium met in emergency session for the first time in 1,000 years. Representatives of 19 predator species gathered in dimensional space to discuss the human problem. They cannot be destroyed, reported the Harvester delegate. Its form still shifting from the quantum damage inflicted by human weapons. Their technology adapts too quickly. Their tactics have no pattern. They fight like they have nothing to lose. All species say that initially, replied the crystalline reapers. But every species breaks when sufficient pressure is applied. Not these, the Harvester insisted. We destroyed our own dimension rather than let them rescue their breeding stock. They followed us into the collapse and saved every prisoner anyway. These creatures don't think like prey. The debate continued for hours. To known multiverse, over 50,000 ships from 19 different predator species carrying weapons that could destroy stars and reshape reality itself. They had come to end humanity and the dangerous idea that prey species could fight back. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Retribution, now the flagship of humanity's combined fleet. 3 months had passed since the rescue mission, and human industry had worked miracles. What had started as 2,000 ships had grown to over 8,000, with more launching every day from shipyards that operated around the clock. But numbers weren't everything. The approaching consortium fleet outnumbered humanity 6-1 and carried technologies developed over millennia of conquest. Against any other species, the battle would be over before it began. "Admiral," Dr. Webb called from his station. "We're receiving a transmission. It's coming from multiple dimensions simultaneously." The main screen flickered, then showed something that made even hardened veterans step back in shock. Not one alien face, but dozens, representatives of every consortium species. Their images overlapping in dimensional space like a nightmare collage of predatory evolution. Humans, they spoke in unison, their voices creating harmonics that resonated through space itself. "You have become an inconvenience that must be resolved." Admiral Kim stepped forward, her expression calm despite facing the combined leadership of an interdimensional empire. "You took our people. We came to get them back. Everything that's happened since then is your choice." "Indeed," the chorus continued. "And now we offer you a final choice. Surrender your quantum technology and submit to standard processing. Your species will be permitted to continue existing in a controlled capacity." The offer was exactly what Kim had expected. The consortium wasn't just afraid of humanity's weapons. They were terrified of what those weapons represented. For the first time in their empire's history, they faced technology they couldn't understand or counter. "What about the other species you've enslaved?" Kim asked. "The ones we rescued? They are irrelevant. This negotiation concerns only your species." Kim looked around her bridge at the crew members who had followed her into interdimensional hell and back. Behind them, throughout human space, billions of people waited to see whether their species would choose freedom or survival. "Counteroffer," Kim said. "Release every prisoner you hold. Shut down your breeding operations. Withdraw from this dimension and never return." The alien chorus made sounds that might have been laughter. "You are in no position to make demands, humans. Our fleet approaches your homeworld. In 72 hours, your star system will be sterilized. Then you'd better bring more ships." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Everyone knew what the next 3 days would bring. The largest battle in galactic history, fought over principles that most species had forgotten centuries ago. But as the consortium fleet moved through interdimensional space toward Earth, something unexpected happened. The prisoners humanity had rescued weren't sitting quietly in refugee camps. They were talking to their own people, spreading word of species that had fought back and won. On the crystal world of Zerion Prime, where the surviving population had been slaves for 3,000 years, revolution broke out within hours of the refugees' return. The crystalline beings used harmonic weapons to shatter the consortium control stations, freeing themselves for the first time in millennia. Similar uprisings erupted across dozens of worlds. The vegan energy forms reclaimed their dimensional matrices. The silicon-based architects rebuilt their molecular foundries. Even the peaceful Aquari, who had submitted to breeding programs rather than fight, suddenly remembered how to be warriors. Director Hayes briefed Admiral Kim on the cascade of rebellion spreading through consortium space. "It's happening everywhere. Every species with survivors is rising up. The consortium is fighting wars on hundreds of fronts simultaneously. How many are supporting us directly? 47 species have pledged ships to the defense of Earth. Not many vessels from each. Most of their fleets were destroyed during their initial defeats. But together," Kim studied the tactical displays showing Allied ships converging on human space. It wasn't enough to match the consortium's numbers, but it represented something more important than firepower. For the first time in galactic history, an alliance of free species was standing together against the predators. The consortium leadership was discovering that enslaving civilizations was easier than keeping them enslaved. Their empire had been built on the assumption that defeated species stayed defeated. No one had planned for the possibility of simultaneous rebellions coordinated across dimensional barriers. Emergency sessions were called as reports flooded in from across consortium space. Supply lines were disrupted. Slave worlds were becoming battlegrounds. Breeding facilities were being destroyed by their own former prisoners. "This is unacceptable," declared the Supreme Harvester during one particularly heated council meeting. "The humans have infected other species with their madness. This rebellion must be crushed completely." But the military reports painted a different picture. The consortium fleet approaching Earth was indeed massive, but it was also the last coherent force they could field. Everything else was tied up fighting rebellions that grew stronger every day. "We need those ships elsewhere," argued the Reaper commander. "The Zarian system is completely lost. The Vegan Confederacy has reformed. Even the Aquari are attacking our outposts." The Supreme Harvester's form shifted with rage. "Let the slaves rebel. Once we destroy Earth and demonstrate the futility of resistance, they will surrender again." But privately, even the consortium leadership was beginning to doubt their strategy. The humans had proven impossible to predict or contain. Their technology developed too quickly. Their tactics made no logical sense. Their willingness to sacrifice for each other violated every principle of survival that guided consortium thinking. Most disturbing of all, they were inspiring others. The rebellion wasn't just about military victory. It was about the idea that predator species could be defeated. That idea was spreading through dimensional space like a virus, infecting every enslaved civilization it touched. As the consortium fleet approached Earth's solar system, they encountered the first elements of humanity's defense network. What they found there shattered every assumption they held about human capabilities. The asteroid belt had been converted into a massive weapons platform. Mining equipment had been repurposed into railguns the size of city blocks. Fusion reactors powered shield generators that could protect entire planets. And throughout it all, human ships moved with coordination that suggested collective consciousness. "How are they communicating?" demanded the consortium fleet commander, as human forces responded to threats before they even developed. "There are no quantum transmissions, no telepathic links." The answer came from a captured human pilot whose ship had been disabled in the opening engagement. When questioned about human coordination, her response was simple: "We don't need telepathy. We know what each other will do because we know why we're fighting." That concept, fighting for shared values rather than personal survival, was completely alien to consortium thinking. Their species fought for territory, resources, dominance. The idea of risking everything for abstract principles made no sense to predator minds. Also made humans impossible to defeat through conventional means. The Battle of the Asteroid Belt lasted 18 hours and ended with the consortium fleet in full retreat. They had lost over 3,000 ships to humanity's 800, and gained nothing except a deeper understanding of what they faced. "They're not just another prey species," the fleet commander reported back to consortium high command. "They fight like they believe they can win against any odds." "Belief is irrelevant," replied the Supreme Harvester. "Reality will assert itself." But reality was proving more flexible than the consortium had anticipated. As their fleet regrouped beyond the outer planets, reports continued to arrive from across their empire. The rebellions were spreading faster than they could be contained. Entire sectors were declaring independence. Supply chains built over millennia were collapsing. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Kim watched the tactical displays showing friendly forces converging on Earth. Human ships formed the core, but they were joined by vessels from dozens of liberated species. The Crystal Warriors brought harmonic weapons that could shatter reality. The energy forms offered dimensional technologies that human science was only beginning to understand. "They're requesting a conference," Dr. Webb announced. "The consortium leadership wants to negotiate." Kim wasn't surprised. The empire that had dominated known space for millennia was discovering that their entire power structure depended on keeping their victims isolated and demoralized. When species started working together, the predators became the prey. Put them through. The dimensional chorus appeared on screen again, but this time their images flickered with uncertainty. The Supreme Harvester spoke for them all, its voice lacking the arrogant confidence of their first contact. "Humans, your resistance has become problematic. We are prepared to discuss terms." "I thought you were in no position to negotiate," Kim replied, echoing their earlier words. Or dusk, only the moment when 50,000 consortium ships emerged from interdimensional space to face the combined fleet of the newly formed Liberation Alliance. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching sensors track the largest military force ever assembled in known space. The consortium had committed everything to this battle. Every ship, every weapon, every technology they possessed. If they lost here, their 10,000-year empire would end. Allied fleet status? She asked. 12,000 ships from 67 species, reported General Morrison. Not enough to match their numbers, but we're not fighting their war anymore, Kim finished. We're fighting ours. The difference was crucial. The consortium had built their strategy around overwhelming individual species through superior force. They had never faced a coordinated alliance of free civilizations, all fighting for the same cause. The crystal warriors of Xerion brought ships that sang destruction through harmonic resonance. The energy forms of Vega offered vessels that existed partially outside normal space. The silicon-based architects contributed craft that could reshape themselves during battle. Even the peaceful Aquari had revealed technologies that turned water into a weapon of mass destruction. But it was humanity that held the alliance together. Human diplomatic protocols had created the first truly inclusive multi-species government. Human quantum technology had given every allied ship the ability to hurt consortium forces. Most importantly, human psychology had taught other species, something they had forgotten during centuries of slavery, how to fight for something greater than survival. The consortium opened the battle with their standard tactics, overwhelming firepower, designed to break enemy morale through sheer destructive capability. Weapons that could vaporize planets carved through space toward the Allied fleet. The response surprised them. Instead of breaking formation or retreating, the Allied ships moved closer together. Human quantum shields extended to protect smaller vessels. Crystal warriors provided harmonic barriers that deflected energy weapons. The entire fleet became a single organism, each species contributing their strengths to protect the whole. Impossible. The Supreme Harvester broadcast from the consortium flagship. No alliance can maintain cohesion under concentrated fire. Admiral Kim opened a fleet-wide channel, her voice reaching every ship in both fleets. You're right. No alliance based on fear or dominance can survive, but an alliance based on shared values, that gets stronger under pressure. The human fleet struck back with precision that bordered on prescience. Quantum disruptors tore through consortium ships while Allied vessels coordinated their attacks with split-second timing. What should have been a chaotic melee became a demonstration of multi-species cooperation. Captain Sarah Kim, now commanding a squadron of mixed human and crystal ships, led her forces against a consortium battle group. The crystal vessels used harmonic weapons to disrupt enemy shields, while human ships followed up with quantum fire. The combination was devastating. How are they doing this? Demanded the Reaper fleet commander as his ships died around him. Each species has different technologies, different tactics. They shouldn't be able to coordinate. The answer came from Dr. Webb, whose research team had developed something unprecedented in galactic history, a universal translation and coordination protocol that worked in real time across multiple species and technologies. It's not about the technology, he explained to Admiral Kim as the battle raged around them. It's about trust. Every species in our alliance knows the others will risk everything to protect them. That kind of trust makes coordination automatic. The concept was alien to consortium thinking. Their empire was built on hierarchies enforced through fear. Species obeyed because the alternative was extinction. The idea of voluntary cooperation for mutual benefit made no sense to predator minds. It also made them predictable. The Allied fleet's tactics evolved throughout the battle, with each species adapting to support the others. When consortium forces concentrated fire on the crystal ships, the energy forms created dimensional barriers to protect them. When the silicon vessels were targeted, human ships provided covering fire while the Aquari used water-based weapons to create confusion. But it was the psychological warfare that proved most effective. As the battle progressed, reports filtered through consortium communications about the spreading rebellions in their home territories. Slave worlds were declaring independence. Breeding facilities were being destroyed by their own former prisoners. The Empire was collapsing from within while its leaders fought for survival in Earth's solar system. We need to end this quickly, the Supreme Harvester told its commanders. Every hour we spend here, we lose another dozen systems to rebellion. The consortium's desperation led them to deploy weapons they had never used before, reality bombs that could erase entire sections of space-time. These devices had been held in reserve for emergencies that threatened the Empire's existence. This qualified. "Admiral," Dr. Webb called out urgently. "They're charging some kind of dimensional weapon. If it goes off, it could destroy everything within a light-year radius." Kim studied the readings. The consortium was willing to sacrifice their own fleet if it meant eliminating the Alliance. It was the ultimate predator response. If they couldn't have their prey, they would make sure no one else could either. "All ships, emergency dispersal," she ordered. "Get as much distance as possible." But the Allied fleet didn't scatter. Instead, the ships moved into a formation that had never been attempted in galactic history. Every vessel extended its shields to overlap with its neighbors, creating a unified barrier powered by technologies from 67 different species. When the reality bomb detonated, it encountered not scattered targets but a single massive shield that bent spacetime around it. The weapon's energy was absorbed, redirected, and focused back at the consortium fleet. The Supreme Harvester's flagship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased. Along with it went the command structure that had held the consortium together for millennia. Without central coordination, the consortium fleet began to fragment. Individual species started fighting for themselves rather than the Empire. Some tried to retreat to their home dimensions. Others attempted to negotiate separate surrenders. The Allied response was swift and merciful. Ships that surrendered were accepted. Crews that laid down their weapons were treated as prisoners of war rather than enemy combatants. For the first time in the consortium's history, their soldiers were learning that defeat didn't mean extinction. "This is Admiral Kim to all consortium forces," she broadcast on all frequencies. "Your empire is finished, but you don't have to die with it. Surrender now and help us build something better." The surrenders came in waves, first individual ships, then entire squadrons, finally whole species. The Harvester remnants were among the last to give up, their predatory psychology making it difficult to accept defeat. But even they eventually recognized the futility of continued resistance. When the last consortium ship powered down its weapons, a silence fell over the battlefield that no one had ever experienced before. For the first time in recorded galactic history, there was no major predator empire threatening the freedom of intelligent species. The immediate aftermath was chaos of the best kind. Liberated species rushed to contact their homeworlds, spreading news of victory across dimensional barriers. Former slaves embraced their rescuers. Ancient enemies discovered they had more in common than they'd realized, but it was the long-term consequences that would reshape the galaxy. The Liberation Alliance didn't dissolve after victory. Instead, it became the foundation for the first truly democratic interstellar government. Each species contributed their unique strengths while maintaining their cultural independence. Trade agreements replaced tribute systems. Scientific cooperation replaced technological hoarding. Sarah Chen, the xenobiology student whose kidnapping had started the war, became the Alliance's first ambassador for former consortium species. Her job was helping liberated civilizations rebuild their societies after centuries of slavery. "The hardest part," she explained to a gathering of interspecies delegates, "isn't learning to be free. It's learning to trust that freedom will last." The trust was built through consistent action. When former consortium species needed help rebuilding, the Alliance provided resources without demanding submission. When conflicts arose between liberated worlds, human mediators offered solutions based on cooperation rather than dominance. Most importantly, the quantum disruptor technology that had made victory possible was shared freely with all Alliance members. The days when advanced weapons were monopolized by predator species were over. The former consortium territories were transformed into the Alliance Protectorate, a vast region of space where former slaves could rebuild their civilizations under the protection of the combined fleet. Trade routes that had once carried tribute now carried goods freely exchanged between equal partners. Admiral Kim, promoted to Fleet Admiral of the Alliance Navy, established her headquarters on Luna Base where the first human fleet had been assembled. From there, she oversaw the largest peacekeeping operation in galactic history. "Status report?" she asked Commander Jackson during their weekly B.